Hi gang, the Joy of Football goes global this week, and just as well because Martin's going to have wings. We start off with letter from the Gantry, and he's off to the Club World Cup.
And we need to talk about the Club World Cup.
And other things as well. Postecoglou, Anarim, and Uriah Rennie. Three of the best, young player, old player. Martin's got one of his mates sending him trophies again.
Neil takes a very nostalgic look back at a tournament that probably the rest of you have forgotten.
Yep, the way we were, the Confederations Cup. And we finished with stoppage time. How did Portugal keep doing it? Don't forget, Patreon to get more involved. Don't forget, subscribe, like, put your comments, and don't forget to join us on Substack.com, where The Joy of Football is a written outlet production line with Martin's letters and my musings. Meanwhile, The Joy of Football podcast. With me, Neil Barnett.
And with me, Martin Tyler.
Looks like Xavi! Rennie! Aguero!
The Joy of Football. Hello, the Joy of Football podcast with Martin Tyler, the greatest commentator in the world, and me, Neil Barnett, is not going on through the summer break because there is no summer break. We're just going on. And the game
go on, that's for sure.
The game goes on and on and on, and the players get no breaks, and they get fatigue, but we don't, because we have joy from football.
We have energy from football.
Right, let's get going. And we're going to start this week, for a good reason, with Martin Tyler's letter from the Gantry.
Letter from the Gantry.
And the reason it's a good reason is he's off.
In what sense? Yeah, hi there, everybody. Thanks, Neil. Well, this is not so much a letter from the Gantry, but one from before the Gantry. I'm heading off to the United States to join the host broadcasting team covering the FIFA Club World Cup. I will be based in Philadelphia, commentating on 7 games in 13 days at the Lincoln Financial Field, the home of NFL's Philadelphia Eagles. In all, I need to prep 10 clubs, some 300 players, but of course, many of them very familiar to me and to you. Manchester City will be in town on the 18th of June, their first game in a tournament that, right from the announcement of their participation, Pep Guardiola seemed determined to win. City have posted an interesting slant on the competition by aligning it with the start of their 25-26 campaign against the majority view that it wraps up 24-25. They begin against the Moroccan team, Wydad. City are the holders of the FIFA World Club Cup after their 4-0 victory over Brazil's Fluminense in Saudi Arabia in December 2023, except that they're not. FIFA see this 32-team competition as a new beginning, even though its title remains the same. The 20 previous tournaments, mostly with 7 clubs involved, have been consigned to a different page in the history books. In this era of branding and marketing, this is no surprise. So Real Madrid, who I will see in Philadelphia against RB Salzburg on June the 26th, will not be described as 5 times former winners. Whichever club holds up a sparkling new trophy in New York on July the 13th will be the first World Club champions of a new era. I will see Chelsea twice on my journey, their second and third games in Group D, against Brazil's Flamengo and Esperance of Tunisia, who will by then have squared up to each other in my debut game on Monday the 16th. A chance maybe to see Liam Delap, who's just joined the Blues after an impressive Premier League season despite Ipswich's relegation, reunited with Enzo Maresca, one of his coaches in Liam's development years at Manchester City. Chelsea, incidentally, also with their name on the old trophy from a triumph in 2021, though no player still with the club got onto the field in the final in the UAE against Palmeiras of Sao Paulo. That they recently landed the Europa Conference League and qualified for the Champions League will be stressed, however, and the youthful look to their lineups. The creation of the tournament has had its critics, as you well know. I'm very fortunate to make my judgment by seeing some of it at first hand. Gianni Infantino, its architect, was headhunted by the world governing body after making a huge commercial success with similar responsibilities at UEFA. The annual appeal of European club competitions is a lucrative and constant revenue stream. This new format on the world stage is an understandable attempt to create something similar for FIFA. Set in the USA, it's also very useful preparation for next year's FIFA World Cup. We should all have concerns for the extra workload on the players. Going for glory here will eventually have a downside further on in the calendar. There will be less time off, but with a prize of almost £100 million for the winner and a total pot of $1 billion, the incentives outweigh the possible consequences. You might recall Carlo Ancelotti reacting to the announcement of the details of the competition with, "We are not going," we being Real Madrid. That was quickly changed by the club's ownership. Real are in the USA, with Carlo no longer at the helm. Instead, in his new role, he'll be hoping that the Brazilian internationals involved are fit for his next round of World Cup qualifiers. England is not represented in the current top 10 lists of country-by-country ticket purchases, but the games will be live on TV in the UK, so you can make up your own mind. I've learnt over many decades not to be afraid of change, and I'm looking forward to watching the action unfold, assessing 32 clubs, all of whom have earned a place via their international confederations one way or another. Filled with anticipation, I head for Philly.
Have you been there before?
No. No, I like the music.
Go. There's a market behind the main square where if you haven't got breakfast in your hotel, that's the place to go for your breakfast.
I'll be more concerned about the transfer market,
and
also there'll be a lot of players coming in on very short notice.
You can buy fruit there as well. No, because they're closing the transfer window before, aren't they? And then
it's been opened early, so you could get Liam Delap across the line and onto the plane.
I've been to some awful stadia in the States for football, but Lincoln's Inn Financial, whatever it's called, isn't one of them. It's quite good for football. So I think you've got a good one there. I went there 2 years ago actually. Chelsea versus Brighton,
4-3.
Would you believe?
Yeah.
I don't even remember the score. These pre-season games, you just look at who's fit and who isn't fit and what have you. But
you can tell I've done my homework. By the way.
It was a bit hard to get back to the city. I remember that.
That is one of
Taxis,
the downsides.
Yeah. And Brazil, Flamengo, very interesting. Managed by Felipe Luiz, the former Atletico Madrid and Brazil left back. And he's
young manager.
Young manager. He won 3 trophies in his first 27 games. I mean, he's been flying, and he's got them into this. So everyone's talking about him.
I don't think he got them into it. It was what happened before him came.
True.
But
yeah.
I take your point.
Yeah, and of course they've just signed Jorginho from Arsenal.
Yes, Jorginho is available. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
But so interesting. Of course, I'm totally against it all. It's all for money and absolutely nothing else. But we'll come on to that next. But I was going to go, as you well know, and I'm not now, due to illness of Paul Cannaville, wishing you well, Canners.
Yeah, mate too.
Going out to do some gigs with him, and he can't go. So you're on your own.
Yes. That at least puts the food markets off my travel agenda anyway. I can concentrate on the football now.
Martin Tyler's.
Hopefully we'll talk, if you're still here, well, I'm sorry you're not going, and I'll be at the end of a line, and maybe we can put together a podcast in those circumstances.
Letter from the Gantry, which you can also read on substack.com, of course, where the letters are published. We're well behind on getting the written ones up, but they are going up one by one every so often. And you can read my musings on things as well. Right. Next segment. We need to talk about. And what do we need to talk about? Yes, the Club World Cup. We're coming on to other things afterwards. Tottenham, Manchester United, but the Club World Cup. Or more to the point, Martin, the schedule. We're in the middle of internationals. And this Club World Cup kicks off on June the 14th. Internationals on June the 10th take place for Brazil, Argentina, Netherlands, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, who all have clubs then going to the Club World Cup. During the Club World Cup, you have the CONCACAF Gold Cup, which is the North American, Central American version of the Euros, taking place in the States as well. And you have the UEFA Under-21 Championships, Euros. And FIFA, in order to establish that the World Cup was the senior competition in all this, because they want to make their money and stop the other confederations making theirs, put out this statement in October when they were sorting out the transfer windows as well. This statement went out. I thank The Athletic for cueing me in on all this. It is not mandatory for clubs participating in the competition to release their registered players to the representatives of teams of the country for which those players are eligible to play. So in other words, FIFA, to ensure that the Club World Cup is a success, said to the individual confederations, sod you, we're going to take priority over you because we want to make the money. It's all money.
They haven't done that. However, the players have just played in the Nations League final. All the top players have played.
Because the players have to join up for the games before. They cannot take a break. The clubs cannot hold the players back from the games that have been taking place now.
What are the games? The Under-21 tournament's never been compulsory for players to go and play.
The Under-21 tournament, the Gold Cup has been.
Well, the Gold Cup is a very small tournament.
It's not a small tournament in North and Central America, which is massive.
Well, something has to, for this to work.
Something has to give because the schedule is not
for this to work,
able to work.
You're living in a world where the first World Cup in 1930 had 13 countries in it. And now we've got 48 coming up. So
that's ludicrous as well.
Well, it's what the reality is, Neil. And the reality is that FIFA need to have something that's a money-making scheme. Now, that's much more of a question. The ticket prices are, at the moment, not going. They hope that thing picks up. And that in fact, they've cut the prices so much that they might fill the grounds at smaller prices.
You've been to the tournament before, have you? The old tournament, which will be the tournament in the next 3 years before it reverts to this structure again in 4 years' time.
Well, I haven't, no, because it's in December and November, December.
I went to the 2012 one in Tokyo or Yokohama, and I'd say two things. One, the ground was 2/3 empty for all the games. And secondly, there must have been 7,000 Brazilians there. So when you say that the English aren't in the top 10 of countries buying
the South Americans
the South Americans absolutely adore the competition.
They do, and
they think it's really important.
Therefore, for you to go sound off about it, and you have strong principles, and I'm not here to bat them away. But the truth of the matter is, there's parts of the world that are really looking forward to this. That people are making the same sort of efforts they make to go to the actual international World Cup. Where there's a lot of sacrifices made, travel, but a lot of pluses and camaraderie and seeing top level football. And I just believe we have to give this a chance to see where we are at the end of it. Of course we fear for the players. Do you know what? I don't fear for the players who play as much as for the players who are there and don't play. Because it was pointed out to me during the winter from the Players' Union that actually it's almost more stressful to go and not play and just train and sit and watch. You're away from your family. You're at work. And although your body might be okay when you get back, you've actually, in a way, wasted your time because you haven't been able to contribute on the field. And we're talking about squads. Before we must say, Neil, we're recording this on a day where the squads haven't been announced yet, but they're going to be 28, I think, and you can go up to beyond 30. And I think even during the tournament, you might be able to go up. 37 will be the maximum. So there are going to be a lot of people involved in this tournament who aren't going to play. If you play 3 group games, well, you go home a bit earlier. But I think I really respect that side of it, the mental health issue of the players, of the mental fatigue of being at work when they're not actually doing what their body tells them they should be doing. So why are we taking all these players? Why don't we just have normal squad? The first team sheet, I think there's 15 subs. So 11 plus 15 on every team sheet. Why? Only 5 subs are allowed to come on.
And that's too many.
One more in extra time when we get into the knockout phase. Why? Why are we? Why is that a sop to? Oh well, they can only play for 60 minutes because they're tired. No player wants to play for 60 minutes. No. They all want to play for 90 minutes.
It's rubbish. It's all rubbish. Manchester City appealed to the Premier League. I think with support from Chelsea, the 2 English clubs in it. To have their season, their 2025-26 season start a little later. The final of the Club World Cup is on July the 14th. The Premier League starts a month later on the weekend of August 16th, 17th. The Premier League refused. Obviously, if the players get their 3 weeks off, which they are entitled to by law, I think it's the laws of the game. Or is it just by
it's
spoken word?
It is written down, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it is somewhere.
I think the unions have got it.
Yeah. Then they'd only have a week before the season started.
Yeah.
Do you think the Premier League should have allowed it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, who's to say they're going to get to the final?
No. Well, maybe it would have been if they do.
Well, maybe if they do, maybe something will be looked at there. We've had fixtures change at short notice before, but the Premier League is an entity in itself, and it relies on having a big finale like we've just seen and a big start when everybody starts on the same weekend.
So it is all just sod the players.
No, it's not sod the players. The players are they're enjoying playing top level football for super top level money, and yes.
Let's see what state they're in 20 years' time.
Well, sport's never been without risks. I see a lot of players from sort of my time when I was in my 20s, when I started commentating late 20s, players from that era who are still going strong and had no medical backup, had no dietary advice, had no support mechanisms like the players today have. The top players get
and drunk copiously.
Well, that's another story. I'm certainly not going to deny that. And now the players do drink copiously still, but it's water, and it's the right thing. Listen, okay. It's a very good topic, but as I said in the letter, I want to go and see for myself.
I'll be watching the games.
As I'm on one city, hopefully I'll have the opportunity to go and talk to the players on the days off between Chelsea are there for back-to-back games. So I guess I might have a chance to talk to Enzo Maresca about how the state of the players are,
Philadelphia steak?
Yeah.
That steak with cheese on the top?
Not really for me.
No, not for me.
No. As I say, the best thing about it from Philadelphia is the music.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge music person, but it's got the beat that
Philly.
I'll have that. If I had headphones and music and all those things that play out, I would be playing local music there, but I don't, so I won't.
Okay, we stay on, we need to talk about, and we move to how much patience should a Premier League club have with its manager? Tottenham won the Europa League and sacked Ange Postecoglou. Manchester United won NAFL and kept Ruben Amorim.
Who started in November.
Yeah.
So it's hardly comparable, is it? It's the second season and somebody who's not even had a full season.
Yeah. But so far, apart from the Europa League final for Tottenham, both their time from November when Ruben took over has been absolutely catastrophic.
Well, I'd bring Manchester United into the equation simply because I think if they hadn't kept Erik ten Hag after winning the FA Cup, only to dismiss him a few months later, that Ange Postecoglou might have had a better chance of surviving because that didn't look good business. It did look though, oh, it would be nice to you because you've won us a trophy. Do we really think we're not sure about you? And then, there has to be another upheaval. So I do think Ange has suffered from that experience, which he had nothing to do with. He must know deep down losing 22 games out of 38 is
unacceptable.
It's not acceptable, really. And I'm not sure. He gave it his best shot. He undoubtedly did that. He's left an imprint, not just on Tottenham Hotspur, but on the Premier League with his personality, his ability to take on us in the media, and his loathing of VAR. Yes, yeah. Well, he got a lot of friends for that, didn't he, as well? But what surprised me with all the nice things the players said afterwards was, in the nicest possible way, and I've got one or two friends in the Spurs camp. You lost 22 league games, That's not the best way to keep your manager in a job, is it, really? No. And of course the injuries were there. But it is an occupational hazard. Were the injuries caused by the style of play, the sprints? All that's being debated now. All I know is that Ange Postecoglou said, I'll win a trophy in my second season. He did it. And he got a lot of spurs in a different sense for that. Yeah. And I wish him well. He'll get another good job. He'll get a much better job than if he'd lost the final, I'm sure. Yeah. And I don't think maybe we've seen the last of him in this country. I hope not, because he's great value.
Yeah, two clubs that need to find a foundation, really. And you should know from within if your coach is building that foundation. But I don't think people do anymore. I think they used to know when it was a manager, when it was Alex Ferguson, or when it was, who was the last Tottenham manager to build a foundation? Terry Venables, probably.
I'm disappointed that we haven't had the clubs questioned about the responsibilities of those who are higher up the chain.
Yeah. Well, they've changed. They lost their director of football, Tottenham, because he was suspended. Paratici.
Yeah.
And they've rehired him now, haven't they? Or they are rehiring him. I think he is rated very highly.
We need a manager to come out and say, I'm having left the club, but there'll be turkeys voting for Christmas if they do this, and say, well, I was told to sign him by him. That's proper accountability, isn't it? And you don't have to do it in a nasty. Say, well, look, we tried. We had a group together. We all thought he was the right person. But it wasn't just me. It was a collective. And or in the extreme, well, it wasn't me. I just coached the players. They're the players that give me that. That's certainly a case in football as well. So I do still think, and we started this season by saying, let's hear more from the sporting directors.
But we haven't.
And the technical directors. No, we haven't.
No.
And maybe it's our fault. Because, we talked about getting them on here. I don't mean our specific fault, but the media's fault, that nobody goes looking for the next question. Because the manager's the one. For the story is, what's going to happen to Amorim? What's going to happen to Postecoglou? What's going to happen to Tuchel? That stops there, but it shouldn't be a ceiling.
Yeah,
Dan Ashworth. You've got a skylight. We should have a skylight in the journalistic.
Dan Ashworth, who was Newcastle, he was Manchester United, and now is FA again, having been FA before that. One was Brighton for a while. If you speak but he never talks in public, or very rarely.
But the non-disclosure agreements are there, so you have to. But they don't last forever. And by the way, if you really believe that it's not gone your way, don't sign them. Just leave, and of course you'll lose a lot of money. But a lot of these guys have got a lot of money anyway. So tell us the truth. Why? Football would be better if we shared all these experiences. These are not top secrets.
How many times? Without naming names or clubs, although you can if you want to. How many times have you heard a manager quietly tell you, "Oh God, that had nothing to do with me"?
A lot.
Yeah, so have I. I was actually called in once by a manager and told, "We are signing. I want you to know this is nothing to do with me."
The managers who called me and usually said, "You're not playing on Saturday."
So yeah. So I do feel sorry for them.
The compensation is, listen,
They're rich.
everybody knows how much money they're getting because that does become public.
Yeah.
But I just
And
think
it's obscene. That's obscene as well.
well, that's another story.
Yeah.
But the truth is, what we're talking about is whether the clubs should be more open in their dealings and explaining why. And it's not just for us. The supporters need to know.
Well, the supporters aren't rated important anymore because they're not part of the financial picture in the way that they were. I do think the other person that we need to take into consideration in all this, or the other role, is the fitness coach. Now, some coaches, head coaches, bring in their own fitness coach, but some clubs insist on supplying their own fitness coach
And medical team,
Yeah, and well, that'll be separate again. But I remember the day after Tottenham beat Manchester United in the final, you said to me, to be honest, when they've had the goalkeeper and that back four, they haven't lost many games. Well, they didn't have them very often because they were never fit.
Now that's
Was that the schedule, or was that the coaching, the training?
We should be able to ask these questions, and people should say. And if Ange says, "Look, I had to keep them for these games, and look, what we've got a trophy. Even though I'm not the club, I'm very proud we've got a trophy, as he should be." And the Spurs fans, even they're saying goodbye to him, they're very proud of what he's done. So why should we not? This shouldn't be whispers in corridors, really.
Yeah.
But everybody's accountable. Everyone's worried about their own future. So if I tell you that Doggy's not fit for 4 league games, because I believe that as a medical man, and we lose all those 4 league games, and he plays in the Europa League and we win. I mean, you know what? How do you square that? And also, there's, to be fair on fitness issues, there is a lot of personal data involved which can't come out.
No, but I think what has happened is football is by committee, and the head coach cops it. That's basically what happens now, and
there is. I promise you, Neil. There's a penalty. He overrides him. He overrides him. He overrides him. So it's not. The committee is like an upwards committee. It's not sitting around the table.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's a different hierarchy for every decision in many ways.
There's a story that involves an England player who's not playing for England at the moment, but is still a top player, where the manager was told that he really shouldn't play him, and the player went, "No, I'm all right." And the player played, and then the fitness coach who told the manager not to play him went to him and said, "Oh, you were so brave to play him," and he got through the 90 minutes. Well done, as if you know, he had to justify the fact that he said don't play him, and he played, and they won the game. But this is life. It's not straightforward like that. I mean, we all have decisions. I mean, you and I would work when we have flu and colds, and not everybody else does. I've had people say to me, "You're mad. Why are you doing it, risking your health there?" Well, because I love doing what I do, you know. And that happens in football, particularly where you've got the fitness coaches have to assess. The player wants to play whatever. Get me fit. That's what it used to be like. How many games am I going to miss? No, I can't miss those many games. Now, of course, with financial, you don't suffer so much from missing matches as you used to when you were on match money, win bonuses and things like that. They don't exist anymore. So maybe it's not that urgency to play. It's very different. The bottom line on this is, I think we're entitled to know a bit more. But if we don't ask the questions, why should we get the answers? You know.
This is really sad.
Yes.
We need to talk about Uriah Rennie.
We do. Yes.
Dead at 65, the first Premier League black referee, probably the first senior black referee in this country. I think around the actual football clubs, the actual football culture, he was very popular because he was a very sort of outgoing person. As a referee, he not only brought diversity, he brought a physicality to the job that I hadn't seen before. He was able to, I mean, he was a huge man, but he was able to be on top of the game 10 yards from wherever the incidents were happening all the time. I hadn't seen anybody cover ground like he did, with less strides, fewer strides than most other people on the pitch, because he was so big. It didn't mean that all his decisions were correct, but it gave him a big advantage in that sense, and it brought something fresh to the game. And they weren't full time then, referees.
And there was no VAR, of course.
No. So I think full time came in 2001, and he started refereeing in '97. So in the Premier League. But I go on about Ruud Gullit, the first black manager to win a major trophy in England in 1997. Who was the second? Of course, there hasn't been one. And diversity in football needs to be in all areas. And since Uriah Rennie, referees haven't really managed diversity very well.
No, Sam Allison is the current example, if you like, who has refereed a few Premier League games, starting, I think, probably at the back end of 2023. So he's got more to come, I'm sure. But I think the pool of those who want to start being referees is that's where you have to look at it, really, because although hopefully in this fast tracking of the ex-players, one would, given the diversity amongst the playing staff in this country now, that might actually improve diversity in the officials. So it's I know it's on the agenda. The PGMOL are aware of it. They want more, and they're striving to do it. But just on the subject of Uriah, I obviously I commentated a lot of games that he refereed, and you knew he was in charge. And it's very sad. He's been ill for about 6 months, I understand, and it's obviously in the end became fatal, the problems that he had. But it's no age for somebody who's athletic and made so much contribution in his way to the game that we love. It's no age to go, and all our sympathies to his friends and family. Many friends in football were feeling the same.
Yeah. And he did his bit to move the game on.
He did.
Right. Next up, 3 of the best.
And he makes them pay.
3 of the best. He's made them pay, and that completes a wonderful hat-trick.
Young player, old player, or as you well know if you watch and listen regularly, young players, old players, and players, because we...
Well, that's your take on it, Neil. I tried to go for 1. Because it is 3 of the best,
well,
1 young player, 1 player, and 1 old player. Is that...
can we just say variety is the spice of life? And if you enjoy the variety of the joy of football, don't forget to subscribe and to put your comments down on the bottom. And if you don't enjoy it, put your savage comments down the bottom as well. Martin Tyler, young player.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to come up with something around the Nations League, because I love the Nations League. I think it's a much undervalued competition. I was lucky enough to cover England's first venture into it, the qualifying games, and they got into the last 4, actually in Portugal, under Gareth Southgate, and they were beaten by the Dutch, and then I think against Switzerland won the 3rd and 4th playoff games, so finished 3rd in the first Nations League. And I don't think it got much traction back home.
No, and I remember when England were beaten by the Dutch, Gareth Southgate coming out afterwards and having the balls to say, we've gone a long way, England, because they got to the semi-final of the World Cup. We've gone a long way, but we have to start beating top opposition if we really want to go further. And nobody had ever really said that before. And I think that was very brave of a manager who, even having reached the semi-final, wasn't necessarily as locked into the job, because you're never locked into a manager's job.
No, and we're talking earlier about the new branding of the FIFA Club World Cup. And this was a brand new competition. Yeah. And what I love about it is that you play at your level.
Yeah.
And
which I had a voice of passion early on in the joy of football, saying we've got to stop these waste of time qualifiers, and the smaller countries should have their own qualifiers, and a couple of them get into the big qualifying. We should have fewer games, and Andorra versus England.
Yeah, but
waste
Andorra
of
can turn around
time.
and say we lost 1-0.
I know.
mean, you know that.
Yeah.
And they gave England
They
the
can.
game, not the sort of game maybe you want to watch all the time, but they gave England the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another argument. But I do love the principle of every country involved in UEFA playing at the different level, and the promotions and relegation. But again, they're not really accentuated. England have got promoted back to Group A, having been relegated in the time since they finished third in that inaugural tournament. And because it's sort of tucked between Euros and World Cups, it's sort of, why are we doing this? I think it's for a real purpose. I think those games really matter. And the 2 games this week have been terrific. So I'm going to go back to the 2 semi-finals and the final and the third and fourth place game to France's Michael Olise, who, of course, we knew from Reading and Crystal Palace, who was in the losing side in a thrilling 5-4. In fact, they nearly caught up France. They were coming from a long way back, weren't they, in their semi-final? And then was on the bench, actually, for the third and fourth place game, which was Germany away, in effect. And he came on and scored the goal that absolutely sealed the victory. And Kylian Mbappe, after a real mess, when Kylian Mbappe was the furthest player forward and he was still in his own half, there were no defenders apart from the goalkeeper, and he ran away and just squared it. At least they kept pace with him the run, so it was a good piece of athleticism to get there, and it was a simple finish set up by Mbappe.
Record number of assists in the Bundesliga for a first-year player.
Yeah, and the fact that came out, which I wasn't aware of, he in the last 4 Bayern games, he both scored and assisted in each of them, which I think is...
and then people wonder why Crystal Palace struggled at the beginning of the season, because he just left.
But the other thing I like about Michael Olise, which sort of came up in the cup final commentary semi-final, that he taught Eberechi Eze to play chess.
Really?
And I thought Eze won a tournament, an online tournament. We got a lot of publicity, but when I dug into it a little bit more, it came from his big mate Olise.
Oh, that's fantastic!
And that they used to play chess, and probably still do. Maybe even at this moment we're speaking, playing chess online to each other, and that's great. I mean, I'm not being snobbish about chess. I mean, it's a game that anybody could play. If you've got a game sense, it's a game for clever people, and he's a very clever footballer as well. So I like that. It was a little. I do love part of the real thrill of the job is treating the players as people, not as robots, and that kind of a side is a good one. So he's my young player, one young player,
and he of course left Chelsea age 14. Like Declan Rice, we've oh dear.
But you can't have everybody, Neil. You're having a good bet of having everybody. Have we got any more transfers into Chelsea? It's the window's still open today, I think.
I think his brother's still in the academy.
Yeah.
Right. I've got 3 players, of course, my young players.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with France first of all. Malo Gusto, Chelsea, made his full debut. He was a substitute in the Spain game, and he made his full debut in the third place game against Germany. And he played right back as a right back, not as an inverted midfielder. His last game for Chelsea as an inverted midfielder was the UEFA Conference Final, where in midfield he passed poorly, which led to the opening goal being conceded, lost his way, and got substituted at half time. Yeah. He is not a midfielder. He is an up and down, committed, strong, fast, aggressive, very, very good acceleration, whipper of the ball into the penalty area, right back. Such a player at left back is Nuno Mendes. He is not inverted for Paris Saint-Germain, and he is not inverted for Portugal. And he scored the first goal and made the second goal in the final against
what about his
Spain
penalty
for 2-2.
By the way,
and
penalty was stunning.
And yes, he can go into the midfield areas and what have you. But essentially, he's somebody who works the line. My final player, Joao Neves, who is the right-sided midfielder in a 4-3-3 for Paris Saint-Germain, for some reason was the right back for Portugal, inverted into midfield, given the impossible job in the final of marking Nico Williams, and like Gusto in the UEFA Conference Final, was substituted at half-time.
He did play in the semi-final then.
Yeah. But
so
but the fact is that everybody is still copying the Pep, who originally did it with Kyle Walker and gave that up pretty quickly, people seem to forget, and finished up doing it most successfully with John Stones, often out of central defence, not always out of right back, though he played Stones at right back as well. But it was just the first opening of the idea caught everybody off guard and was genius. People copying it are having real problems, because if you lose the ball, you're going to be outflanked because your fullback is in midfield and somebody is going to have an overload down the wings. And if you do it against Spain with Cucurella at left back and Williams at left wing, you are going to concede. I mean, it's just born for trouble. And I've watched it all season at my Chelsea. And poor Gusto, who's never scored a first-class goal, and hasn't got a huge number of assists in his midfield locker, just gets in the way. When he's going up and down the flank, he's an absolute rocket man. And
Joao Neves is a fantastic midfield player.
Absolutely.
And to be fair, and I'm going to come on to Roberto Martinez later, but to be fair, he recognised it and he put a proper right back
Semedo.
in. Yeah, Nelson Semedo.
Who's not the world's greatest right back by a long shot, but he is a right back. And
a conventional right back.
I think it does not help young players to play them what I call out of position, out of where they know the job. I think it confuses them. And I think there is a great deal of value to specialism in football. And obviously there's occasional requirement, and you need it in your squad for people who can play in more than one position. But if you haven't got specialists, you won't win a darn thing.
Nuno Mendes, you have undersold.
Oh, what a player.
He was sensational, as he was, of course, for PSG as well. If there was any justice, I hate these individual awards. We've talked about it before. It's a team game, and you only glorify those who are in extreme situation, goal scorers and maybe goalkeepers sometimes. But the workaday, other positions never get recognised. If there was any real football committee voting for the Balon d'Or as we speak for this year, they should give it to Nuno Mendes.
We'll come on to that.
He is that good, by the way.
We'll come on to that.
He is that good.
Your old player.
Well, my old player is Roberto Martinez, simply because of it's a wonderful achievement. I mean, it's a bit like Scotland beating England in the final, isn't it, really? Portugal beating Spain. And to do it in Germany, it was and to make the tactical tweak that made it work.
And in terms of the power at your fingertips, because Spain's got so many more people to select from. It's a bit like Wigan beating Manchester City in the FA Cup final.
Yes. And of course, he came over to English football as a player at Wigan. The three amigos, Saber and Isidro Diaz were the other two.
Did you see much of him as a player?
Well, I actually played alongside him in a game at before a World Cup. We had a game in South Africa to test out the what it was called, the ball beginning with J. Jubilani? Yeah. Jubilani ball, yeah. So we played in that game.
I thought he played in the World Cup.
And we tested out. There were a lot of Ruud Gullit, your friend, and my friend Ruud Gullit played, and Steve McManaman and people like that. Shaka Hislop was one of the goalkeepers. We had a good, I was pleased to be in that company. And we were winning 6-2, and Ruud Gullit had been playing in goal. And then Gullit came out of goal and said, right, next goal wins it. and Steve McManaman scored for them. So they were running around like they won the World Cup, and we went on a bus all together from the hotel. We were all staying in pretty much the same part of Johannesburg, and I sat next to Robbie on the way back, and he goes, "We won that game." It was so competitive, and I'm going, "Yeah, it's a disgrace, isn't it?" And they're all whooping up and down. I saw Steve McManaman the other night, and I'm going, "Oh, you lucky! It wasn't fair." But if Roberto Martinez was here, he would remember it. I promise you, he's that competitive. But then he went to Motherwell and he met his wife Beth, which is a lovely family story as well. From obviously away from Spain, he'd been Scotland and Swansea, of course, as well, and now he's travelled around and Belgium obviously was a big job, and having won the FA Cup with Wigan and winning the Nations League with Portugal have won it before, so I suppose it's not quite the same as Wigan, but he's a truly excellent person. He talks very sensibly at that game, and I was, I've got no allegiance really to either Portugal or Spain, but for him I was just chuffed, and I was fortunate to get a photo of the trophy pinged into my my inbox, or whatever we call it, of the a little sign of the celebration. So, Robbie, well done, and your staff as well. Richard Evans deserves a mention, the head of performance.
Ricky Cavaglia.
Yes, but he's not been there. Richard Evans been there all the time, so he deserves a share of the spoils too. Welsh, so another eclectic mix.
My old player is Ivan Jurić, late of Southampton manager. As a player, I'd never heard of him. He had a long career, mostly in the second tier. He had one season in La Liga with Sevilla, and they got relegated. So although he stayed there quite a long time, it was mostly in the second tier. He had quite a long time with Crotone in the second tier of Italian football. Croatian. At the age of 33, he won his first cap. Won 5 caps. At the age of 34, he retired. So I really had never heard of him. When he was playing for Crotone, his manager was Gasperini. And when Gasperini went to Inter Milan as head coach, he took Jurić with him, and that was his first job as assistant manager at Inter Milan. He then worked on. Gasperini had an awful time. Inter Milan fans can't stick him. He went on and turned Atalanta into the power that they are now. And Jurić went on, and he became manager of Crotone, where he'd been a successful, to a certain extent, player, and got them promoted to Serie A for the first time. His other jobs that followed in Italy, Torino, and I think there was one other, mid-table, and he didn't really keep jobs for very long, and he had a couple of jobs here and a couple of jobs there, and finished up at Southampton. When they were
terrible circumstances.
After Russell Martin had been sacked, and he couldn't save them. He couldn't turn it round, and I was intrigued at all his post-match interviews on Sky and Match of the Day and TNT, because I know Southampton were doing badly. But my God, he gave the most bloody miserable interviews I've ever seen a manager give. He didn't keep the job. I've no idea whether he was laying foundations there for them or not. But he didn't keep the job, and off he went. Gasperini decides he's had enough at Atalanta after all these years, and this summer has succeeded the retiring Claudio Ranieri as the head coach at Roma.
Maybe not retiring. There's more on that to come, isn't there? With
the Italian job.
Yeah. He's the people's choice.
Yeah. Well, he's sort of taken a Mark Bright role at Crystal Palace at Roma, supporting the president and everything. And so the superb Champions League Atalanta needed a new manager, and they've gone for Ivan Jurić. He will be managing in the Champions League this season. I am intrigued to see how it will be. Gasperini is the most emotional manager imaginable. Will Jurić still be totally miserable at the end of games, even if they're winning?
I think realistic is more a word I would use. You're a man of extremes, Neil. So
I don't know.
Russell Martin's cropped up at Rangers, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So you know, they've
have a
on.
philosophy, get a job. Yeah. Right, we move on. By the way, good luck to Ivan Jurić. Martin, player.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and it's strange because we've talked about people playing in the third and fourth place game for the losing semi-finalists, and it was also
In the Nations League.
In the Nations League, yeah, and France in particular. And Loïc Badé, at the age of 25, made his debut as a centre-back in the 2-0 win away to Germany, in which Olise scored the second goal. And it's been a remarkable rise from somebody I had on my notes for about 5 months, and I was covering Nottingham Forest and when they got promoted, and he never got a look in. He never got a game anywhere near the senior side, and he was on loan from Rennes. We talked about last time about Rennes and their football factory, and then when they cut the loan short, and he went to Sevilla, and ended up winning the Europa League. So that all happened a while back, and he stayed with Sevilla, who've not had always the best of times since. But it's a great example of sticking at it, you know. And he was quizzed a lot in Nottingham about, you're not getting a game. And there were people like Scott McKenna and Joe Worrell, Willie Bowley, Kouyaté would play as a centre-back sometimes. Sometimes they played with three, which offered him a chance, but often Steve Cooper went to four, which two centre-backs. So he never got and what he was at that stage obviously didn't fit what Steve Cooper liked, experienced players, I think that would be fair to say. And he wasn't particularly experienced. But now he is. And you know, when I think he scored against Manchester United when they went on to win that Europa League. He got an Olympic silver medal from his time in the last Olympics. He was in that squad under Thierry Henry, and he played so well in this game. I mean, Germany in front of a home crowd were wanting to get a bit of a pickup after. When you're the host of the Nations League finale, the home nation's under great pressure to win. Well, they lost to Portugal at home, and then they lost to France. And Badé kept a clean sheet on his debut, played the whole game, and well played, son.
Yeah, I think the France kind of central defence was so strong for so many years, and it's just. You know, I like Konate a lot, but he has fitness issues, doesn't he? And
I don't think he was fit for this game.
Yeah, and so he's not always been available to Deschamps, and of course Varane he just lost interest in football. It seemed to me in his latter year at Real Madrid, and then going to Manchester United, and his partners in France all seem to get injured one after the other. And recently, Upamecano has been the first choice, but I just don't think he's a top centre-back, Upamecano. And so I think it's there for grabs.
I'm just a great believer in telling players if they have downside early in their career to stick at it.
Yeah.
You're a long time retired. Make the most of what opportunities come your way. And that's quite a tough road. I mean, he was one of the 30-odd players that Marinakis brought into Forest in that period. Yeah. So he got lost in the crowd, really. Yeah. But now he's a standout in the France team.
Lovely,
so
brilliant. I, of course, have 5 players this week. And the reason I have 5 is this. Cristiano Ronaldo said recently that the winner of the Balon d'Or should have won the Champions League. And there's been a lot of hoo-ha over that. I kind of get what he's getting at, because I remember years and years ago, Jose Mourinho saying the player of the year in England should have won the Premier League. So I get that. But there seems to be a debate over recently, should it go to Lamine Yamal? Should it go to Desiree Doué? And I'm thinking, hang on. Do you all know what you're talking about? And here you've even mentioned Nunes, left back.
Nuno
Mendes.
Who, by the way, what I didn't mention, he's had so many players in his pocket. I know he's an attacking player. Salah,
in the Champions League. Yeah.
Saka.
Yeah.
And so he can defend as well. I'm a massive fan.
Yeah, I want to just put these 5 players in the picture for no other reason than they are the players of the year voted by the 5 top leagues in Europe, and nobody's talking about them. And you could argue that the Balon d'Or ought to come from somebody who's won the league they play in, player of the season. So in England, Mohamed Salah. In Spain, not Yamal, Rafinha, who's had an absolutely magnificent season from the same club. In Italy, Scott McTominay, no less. In Germany, Harry Kane. And in France, the one who I suspect might win it is Mane Dembele.
It's no Mane, it's Usman. I've got the accents right here, and you've typed them out, Neil. There's no accent on the
True.
E.
Usman. Sorry, Uz. Usman Dembele.
But there you are. They're all forwards, aren't they? They're all. I mean, Scott McTominay is a bit. I'm glad it's a fantastic achievement for Scott, by the way, who was. Before you mentioned Mourinho. Mourinho created a special award when he was at Old Trafford for his player.
Manager's player.
But there wasn't one before. Yeah. And he wanted to give Scott McTominay something that he wasn't going to get from any other source. And he did. So great judgment from the special one.
Yeah. But I think that should be a starting point for discussions on Ballon d'Or. I'm not saying it should be a closing point, but it should be a starting point. All those players. There you go. Yeah. Right. Last segment, apart from stoppage time. The way we were. And this is a chance just to remember, as we go into the Club World Cup, the Confederations Cup. Now, the Confederations Cup took place every year before the World Cup, normally in the same country as the World Cup was going to be. So it was like a practice.
It was.
For administration and organisation. And I was actually very fond of the Confederations Cup because there weren't too many games, there weren't too many players involved, and it was useful. It actually had a practical use, and you've commentated on it.
Yeah, 1 or 2 versions of it I did. Certainly the one in Germany before 2006. I remember going to Leipzig, the old ground, and doing a game there. It was, it had not a holiday feel about it, but it was competitive football light, really, compared to the real thing.
Which I think the Club World Cup might turn out to be.
No, I don't think so, because there's a much more oomph behind it. I think financially they really want to make it work, and we'll see. But the Confederations Cup was. We were all going to go, God willing, to the World Cup the following year. So we got our bearings as media as well. We sort of went to grounds, checked out a few commentary positions and travel arrangements, and what was feasible and what wasn't. So it had its place. It served its time, really, I guess.
I'm not sure it had served its time. I thought it was I enjoyed it. I thought it was a bit unlucky to get left out. Of course, the most memorable thing in terms of England from it was the goal conceded in France in 1997 to Brazilian Roberto Carlos, the free kick.
That wasn't against England, was it?
Was it not?
No, I did that wasn't the Confederations Cup anyway.
It was.
No, it wasn't. What was it called? The tournoi.
Oh, well, it was basically the same thing, wasn't it?
I suppose so.
Yeah,
but
it was.
It was definitely the tournoi.
Yeah.
Roberto, I didn't do the game, but I did all the England games, so I promise you it wasn't against England. It was Brazil against Italy, France. Was it Brazil against France?
Yeah.
In Lyon, I think.
I mean, it
was a stunning goal.
Yeah.
Nuno Mendes got that to copy yet in his portfolio.
And the other one I really remember was in South Africa before 2010, when at half-time in the final it was USA 2, Brazil 0, with 2 goals by Clint Dempsey of Fulham and Tottenham renown, before Brazil came back
Tough
to win.
guy, Clint.
Yeah. Brazil came back to win 3-2, but still held in the USA as one of their great national achievements in football. And so it was. I thought it was a very good competition because it served a purpose other than just making money. And I salute it.
Well, and you're entitled to, Neil, and I try to look forward, and you obviously try to look back. That's probably the main difference between us, really.
We move on then, looking forward to stoppage time.
Stoppage time.
And we just got to pay our respects to Portugal. They now are absolutely challenging the Dutch, aren't they? I mean, the Dutch, with their 12 million or whatever population, the 2 World Cup finals in the 70s, the World Cup final in 2010, semi-final in 2014, the Euros in 1988, and Portugal with the Euros in 2016 and the Nations League in 2019, was it?
Yeah, they won.
2019 and now in 2025. I mean, it's quite remarkable, really.
It's the production line of players that it's fantastic. I guess there's some other factor in it because Spain have produced Lamine Yamal, Doué in France. It's not just the coaching; it's accident of birth or whatever. However these amazing talents come, it's nature, not nurture. But there's a lot of nurture, and in Portugal they seem to know how to do it. I mean, the league it's okay, but it's not
It's
just
the 3-club league.
Yeah. It's not the only one that you can say that about, but it's competitive. But the combination of the new, we've been through a golden generation with Rui Costa and people like that, and Luis Figo, and that didn't quite click.
Well, we went through one in the 60s with Eusebio.
Well, they got close, didn't they? Yeah, they got very close. So there is something about whether it's the climate, that you can probably play football all the year round and get out. I don't know. I've never lived in Portugal. I'm sure it's pretty cold up in the northern parts in the winter, but it's an outdoor life, an outdoor society, I'm sure. But somehow they can harness it, and of course they produce great coaches as well, which is also an issue really when we're looking at English coaches who don't get jobs, and the Portuguese is seen as being being the kind of that's attractive option.
That's a more modern thing, isn't it? The last kind of 20 years thing, this century thing.
Yeah. Possibly so, yes. Yeah. But we should also mention Cristiano Ronaldo, who scored in a final for Portugal for the first time.
And what a good goal that was.
Amazing goal, yeah. But he did show a little bit of ageing by not being able to complete the 90 minutes and then the extra time as well. So, but to see his tears, people, anybody that's prominent in that has critics as well as legions of admirers, but your heart went out to him. It meant so much. And for a player who's accused of maybe looking after himself more than anything else, you can see what it meant to his country, So Yeah, it's a special place. I've got a lot of friends there who keep me up to date with who's the next kids on the block and keep an eye out for it and are quick to tell me when there's 5 Portuguese players playing for Wolves or something like that.
Well, I mean, and also the players that they have on the bench.
Yeah.
I mean, Rafael Leão not starting.
Oh, and he was terrific when he came on, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Jota, of course, as well.
Yeah.
You know, we all had fully admire as a player. No, they've got a lot going for them. And you know, whatever happens next year, what they did to beat Spain, the best national team in the world. Surely we'd all agree with that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we? Yeah. To beat them, and as a neighbour, what it meant to the Portuguese people to beat Spain, you know, and to beat Germany in Germany to get to the final. I thought it was underplayed this week because obviously there were World Cup qualifiers all over the place as well. But I do think that, as I said earlier, the Nations League has a place. We must support it and give it full credit when it does deliver. And it really delivered over the Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday of that period.
What's the first thing you'll do when you get to the States?
Find my hotel room. Find out what the commentary position's like in that order. Maybe not in that order. Maybe the first bit, because my whole time there depends on the quality of the commentary position. So that'll have a big impact on the quality or lack of it of the words that come from my mouth. So.
Okay, I'll give you a couple of restaurants and a couple of bars to go to.
No, I can't eat them. If the portions in the United States.
Oh
are
no,
enormous.
it's not like that now.
Is it not?
No. They do have some of the best restaurants in the world now.
Do they?
Yeah.
Healthy food.
Yeah. You can get that anywhere now. Although one, I was doing this gig in Las Vegas once, and we were sitting poolside talking football. It was a terrible gig. 5 days of talking football and getting hammered. Got hammered on the first day and then had to.
But the weather's not consistent because Roberto Martinez is going to Miami to work, I think, on the tournament. And then Roberto should be in the sunshine because he's a man in the sunshine of football at the moment.
Yeah, but
I'm going to Philadelphia where it could rain.
Yeah, but it's
I'm taking an umbrella.
But in June, no, you won't need it. It's hot all the time in summer.
According to the forecast.
Really, but I was sitting poolside talking football, and somehow the discussion started about what is American food, and this huge geezer in the middle of the pool joined in the conversation, turned around and said, "Simple, American food is anything you fancy that other countries produce. You just double the ingredients and quadruple the meat."
Well,
so I think you have a point about.
Well, I think I should
helping,
be,
but it's not all like that
I
anymore.
should be weighed out after this podcast and weighed back in again when I come back.
yeah. Out of post-season and pre-season.
Yeah, no,
we'll probably have a podcast with you over there.
Well,
you stuck back here.
I'll certainly have a podcast. Yeah. I mean, it would be fun because I share your concerns about it, but I do think we have to see what it brings and enjoy it.
Okay.
I'm sure there'll be some good football.
Final, most important thing. On the flight over, do you watch a film?
No. Coming back, yes, but not going because I'll be prepping.
Oh, God, it's so dull.
No, listen. Yeah. 300 players. I'm only there 2 weeks. 300 different players. Age, caps now. We got to add on the caps. Some of them, they by the time they they've had another cap. So all the details. So no, it's lovely. It sure beats working for a living.
From Martin and me.
See you.
It's all right. Yeah, the trouble with films on aircraft now is you've got them all on your telly, haven't you? Somehow, or on Amazon, or every film you get on an aeroplane and you look at what's on offer and it's just boring. Thank you for watching or listening all the way through. Don't forget the Patreon if you want to get more involved. Subscribe to us, like us, hate us, respond to us. Just respond, and follow us on Substack.com where we have our writing as well under The Joy of Football. Have a great week, and Martin, have a great trip to the States.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you to sticking with us for all these weeks and hopefully many more weeks to come.